Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP. And I wanted to talk about burnout slash PTSD slash depression, whatever it is that I'm going through right now. It might rain, it might not. There was a big storm last night, which is quite unusual for around here. Tons of lightning and thunder, and I slept well through that, actually, for the most part. But yeah, anyway, I'm going through a tough time. I'm at internal medicine, and last time I was at internal medicine, it was at another hospital, but it was in 2021. So that was a period that was traumatic for me. Now, I hesitate to call it PTSD, which is basically me having imposter syndrome and feeling guilty and, yeah, all sorts of things that maybe are not too conducive to healing. So I'm trying to get out of that mindset and like minimizing mindset. I think that this is an important thing. It wasn't a life-threatening situation, so technically I don't think that maybe it would count as PTSD, but it felt life-threatening, and I think as an autistic person that maybe certain traumas that some people would consider life-threatening, maybe my brain and body considers life-threatening. I have been through one life-threatening experience, which is when I was 17, almost 18. Now, the trigger warnings start now, okay? I underwent a jaw surgery for orthodontics, and basically a week after the surgery, I started coughing up blood. And it happened 3 more times before, like, the doctors at the emergencies finally decided to do a scan, and they saw that a blood vessel had actually broken in my cheek, and that kept clotting up every week, and then the clot would fall off, and then I would start spitting out blood. And it would often happen in the middle of the night. It was one of the hottest summers out there, so I don't think that the clot was like that good. But I was living in constant fear that was going to happen, because it happened several times. And they ended up putting a little metal coil into the blood vessel to stop it. But yeah, I was in the hospital as an autistic person, undiagnosed, right? But it wasn't good. And like, I was really tired. I was anemic. I actually received blood, which was an amazing experience, by the way. So if you are capable of giving blood, please do. I felt like I was revived, basically. And I was in a period at that time, I was depressed and suicidal. So I kind of, I thought that this was going to be the end of me and I was going to die. And thankfully I didn't, but I was kind of surprised at myself at the will that my body had to live. And in the end, I wanted to live, and that kind of was a transformative experience for me. But yeah, so I'm still alive today, more than 10 years later, but it was a traumatizing experience, and I would wake up in the middle of the night hearing the rush of blood in my ears and choking on my own blood, basically, and big blood clots coming out of my mouth and of my nose. And I had to, because I was sharing room with my brother had to, I shouted at him to call my parents, like get my parents out of their room, which, he was 8 at the time. So that must have been really traumatizing for him. But yeah, so in the end, everything went well, but I did have to go to the hospital, and, some of the weirdest things were bothering me very much, which now that I know that I'm autistic, I understand. Like, for example, these nurses that were making me shower. And it was just, like, I did not like showers. And then also, because I was anemic, I I was afraid that I was going to fall over and crack my head on the tile, and it was dark in there, and I didn't want a nurse to help me there. And so my mom helped me in the end, but it was like, that was a huge thing. And since then, every time that I'm scared, like I get to shoot shots of adrenaline. This didn't happen to me before, but after that incident, every time that I'm scared, I feel like tingles in my fingers and in my right big toe. I feel like the shot of through my nerves, I guess, electric impulse, and this tingling sensation. And I've been feeling it now, you know, and that I've been feeling it now quite a lot. And I don't know, you know, and it's because of this constant stress. I've also had another period, which I would call the worst period of my life, which is not a life or death situation, but still a situation that was bad. And that my body, I guess, and mind considers to be a traumatic event. And that was at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, which was middle of COVID. And I was not really on the front lines, but kind of on the front lines of COVID, in the emergency room at the internal medicine clinic. And also, I was bullied at the workplace. Rumors were spread about me. I was told a bunch of shit about me. I had terrible self-esteem. And I, you know, years after the fact, I still have this urge to blame myself for how incompetent and useless I was. And I don't know if I was more incompetent than anybody else there. I guess the other people just faked it better. I don't know. But for me, it was like I was scared of everything. And because I'm in a very similar environment now, these thoughts from 4 years ago are coming back. And it's annoying, you know? I get angry at myself for getting flashbacks or whatever it is that I'm getting, thoughts. Sometimes it's not even like visions. Sometimes it's just like a feeling. And the feeling is like intense fear and terror. And it leads to me having pains in my body. I feel like this anxious tense in my shoulders. I went to the masseur yesterday and she said that she never, like my shoulders have never been this tense. And I also have had pain in my lower back, and I've had difficulty sleeping and dizziness, and all the things that I have during burnout, but also all the things that I had during those periods of my life that were traumatic, you know. And so I feel jumpy, and like, you know, if I meet somebody, like if I meet my neighbor in the corridor, I jump. And it's like, yeah, I usually jump, but like it's worse now. And I just, yeah, I went through a questionnaire for PTSD and I realized that I actually fulfilled the criteria, except for the fact that it is not, it was not a life-threatening event according to, well, the criteria. I don't have too many like flashbacks where I like think truly that I am at that time. I do get nightmares and I do get, you know, my memory is pretty shit in general. I used to think that I had a good memory, but then I realized that a lot of people remember much more than I do. I think that my brain is good at forgetting things. I don't remember much of my childhood, and it's probably because I was a undiagnosed autistic kid and I had to deal with a lot. And so I think that because I didn't have a filter due to my autism, of all the different stimuli coming in, my brain had to create a filter for the memories, So like, because I was taking in everything all the time, my brain could not process all of that. And so it decided what to process. And so I don't have many memories of, like that whole period where I was, I guess, in extreme stress in internal medicine back in 2021, I don't remember much of what happened. It's a blur. I know that I was running around basically all night, tending to patients all the time and feeling bad and, being judged at every turn for everything that I did and indecisive, and then getting people mad at me because I was indecisive. And now I'm in a similar environment and things are not going too well, There are so many things for me to learn. And then like small things I can't do because I don't know them yet. And then I feel useless and I feel like people can't trust me, and so they are disappointed in me. I get all of these like rejection sensitivity problems because I've been rejected in the past, And it's like, and a lot of people are mad at me, like on the phone and also in the emails and, from all sides. And then like somebody tells me to do something in one way and then another person tells me, no, you have to do it this way. And then I suddenly have two people who are angry at me because I can't decide when two people say two different things to me. I also feel like isolated from the rest of the group, and I'm worried that people are going to start spreading rumors about me just like they did then. And, I have all the autistic burnout signs, and the beeping of all of the monitors and everything. It really stresses me out from the core. And, I don't like meeting the patients at the medicine clinic. So I am in constant stress. Now, why am I in stress? What is the origin? I do not know. But there is a part of it that is connected to my past experiences of a time that was really one of the worst times for me. So, so even if I hesitate to call it PTSD, there isn't a better term for it, And instead of, I'm feeling like I blame myself for that terrible time, and I feel guilty for it, and I feel, like I've had, suicidal ideation about it, which, I'm much better at dismissing nowadays compared to before. Like when I was a teen and, when I was 17 in the hospital, I was, clearly thinking about it a lot and dwelling on it, ruminating on it. Well, now I can just dismiss it like a pesky fly or something. I'm just like, so my thought process is like, oh, you should die, Sometimes that's the kind of sentence that comes into my mind. And because I talk to myself a lot, that's kind of how I do things. I'm like, oh, you should kill yourself. And I'm like, no, today let's not do that. That's not a really good idea. Or sometimes I'll be like, why are you saying this? And then I'll be like, well, I feel incredibly embarrassed for having done that thing wrong. And then I'll be like, well, it's not, it's not the end of the world, we'll live. And then that's the end of the conversation, When I'm at home, I can have that conversation out loud, otherwise I have it in my head. But the thing is, I'm used to having these kinds of thoughts, and usually I can keep them at bay. And I can have, like, once a day, that kind of thought. Maybe less than that, maybe once a week, a few times a week. You know what? That's my usual, I guess. But when it starts getting to several times a day, several times an hour, that it takes so much energy out of my body that could be used for more useful things. And, and then I get more frustrated myself, and then that doesn't help. So I try to, like, okay, I'll dismiss it. And then if it comes, then I will dismiss it again. Saying your thoughts like DBT kind of stuff, of like acknowledging the thoughts and letting them go, acknowledging the feelings and letting them run their course. I can do it, but it's very taxing. And when I come home from work, it takes me 2 hours to wind down completely from that experience of being at work. And then once I've wound out completely, then I feel like I need to sleep. And it's like 7 p.m. And then I'm like, I need to take a nap. And then that messes up my sleep for the night. And then I wake up and then I'm like, oh, I have 1 hour to like do dishes and I don't know, listen to an audiobook. Maybe I'll take a shower or something. And that's it. That's my day. And that's depressing. And so I'm trying really hard to stay on top of it all, with the chores and the taking care of my body and all of that. But I feel like I don't have enough time to recuperate because all of this takes so much energy. And it takes so much more time for me to gain that energy and to heal from that before it's time for me to go to work again, And that's why I'd been working 80%, but now I'm not working 80% because I have no choice. This is an obligatory thing I have to do. And yeah, so I feel trapped and I feel like there's no way out. And it's difficult. So I don't know what you guys think. Please be kind and gentle in the comments. I don't know what it is. I will make it through at least this next month, but then I don't know how long I can stand being like this. I will be going back to my regular healthcare center next week, so that's positive because like I know how things work there. There's the routine, there's the colleagues, there's the way that I like to do things. However, that will also be kind of a mess because they're changing the IT journal system, so I'll have to redo a whole new system for myself at work. But at least I think like that is something that's could be positive for me. Like I could create a system that works better. But the fact that I'm stuck in a system in that medicine clinic that I cannot change, that I cannot decide for myself, I don't have any autonomy over anything, that is difficult. And it is traumatizing in itself because I feel like I don't have any buffer if something goes wrong. And that's kind of how I felt when I was in internal medicine last time in 2021, is that I didn't have any control over my life. And the fact that I didn't get any real support afterwards, because I did try to go to a therapist after that, but the therapist was extremely dismissive and mean, actively mean. And I went to see my friends, but my friends are also doctors, so they were like, well, we went through the same thing, and they couldn't really understand to the extent to which I was being bullied at work and how I was going through a really rough time because we didn't know about my undiagnosed autism, and that I experience things differently than others and other people, behave differently towards me than towards others. And so I had a worse experience than the other people who were also suffering, but not as much as I was, not to make it a competition, but, I was having extra issues compared to some of these other people. Of course, they had their issues on their own, one of them lost her mother throughout in her internship period, and another person, I think. Oh, there's a woodpecker. Okay, uh, but people are all going through their struggles, but that doesn't discount the fact that it was traumatic for me. And so I try to remind myself of that. Anyway, tell me what you guys think. Have a great day. Bye.